Hello, today I will be providing a summary of the initial consultation I had with my client and a summary of the needs analysis I researched for my client chosen activity, rifle shooting. The current video presentation will be centered around several topics that will aim to discuss who the client is and what his goals are, the tools used to determine the client's setbacks in his sport, and an action plan that can be implemented in order to achieve his goals. The client that will be presented in this video is an 18-year-old male, John, who has been practicing rifle shooting at a junior level for 4 years, and he has recently been asked to join the GB Senior Rifle Shooting Squad. His parents practice the sport as well, and they are currently coaching their son. John weighs 66 kilograms and he is 183 meters tall. He has been a vegan for 5 years and is teetotal. Regarding his training program, he exercises daily alongside his shooting-specific technical training. John has been dealing with high levels of anxiety during competition, problem for which, for the past 3 years, a sports science team tried to apply different techniques to assist John, but there were no improvements according to John. The stress reduction strategies used were relaxation training, arousal control, and concentration training, focusing techniques, and positive imagery. However, since this strategy did not aid John, his way of coping with high-threat situations was through self-talk and through thinking about the basic movements he has to do to perform well. This approach, however, seems to make John really exhausted towards the end of the competition, which negatively affects his performance, according to his coach from the GB Senior Squad. Why is needs analysis important? According to Keegan 2016, the primary aim of the needs analysis process is to facilitate an informed appraisal of the client's needs in relation to the demands being placed on them by their sport, ambitions, or life situation. However, the needs analysis can also inform the intake process or contribute to the monitoring of intervention effects and changes made. There are many techniques and methods available for gaining data from a client, such as interviews that could be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, informal chats, observations, questionnaires, performance profiling, speaking to coaches or teammates, analysis of the sport itself. However, there is not believed to be a perfect needs analysis technique or any perfect combination. Thus, in order to find out more about John to be able to build on the brief information already given about him by his coach, an interview will be conducted between the sports psychologist, myself, and John. The interview took place in an environment in which John felt comfortable. It was important to gather more information about John because, as Keegan 2016 suggests, that the better and more thorough the needs analysis is, the more tailor-made and well-informed the intervention or advice can be, and the more likely it is to work. Moreover, a very thorough needs analysis can often render the way forwards extremely obvious, such that both practitioner and client can easily agree a course of action, goals, monitoring measures, and even alternatives if Plan A fails. Thus, the effectiveness of the support offered can depend very heavily on the quality of the needs analysis process. The interview that was conducted with John was semi-structured, which implies that certain key topics needed to be covered, but not in any particular order, and with scope to follow up any interesting responses. Even though in essence similar, interviews and informal chats have their differences. Informal chats can occur in the transitions between training sessions, food hall, or even in corridors, and when walking around grounds or training centers. This technique will be used as a tool to follow up with John on the progress of his performance after certain interventions will be suggested. The questions that were asked during the interview were the following. What are John's goals for the period he works with the psychologist? Any injuries or medication history? A detailed description, so is it typical in certain situations or moments for him to feel anxious? Are certain thoughts, feelings, or behaviors linked to the situation? What impact does the problem have, so do people notice or react to him when he's anxious? Has it happened before? Why? And was it relieved on any specific occasion? Is it specific to certain competitions or venues? And have any noticeable changes occurred build up to this? Any mental, social, competitive, or physical changes? After talking to John, it was concluded that he wants to focus on 3 main goals. First goal is for John to be able to maintain his energy at an optimal level throughout the competition, as he currently struggles to have the required amount of energy left towards the end of the competition in order to perform at a high standard. His second goal is to be able to focus and maintain a strong performance even when fatigued towards the last part of the competition. At the minute, his coach considers that, due to his competition strategy, his performance toward the end is not as good as it could be. His third and final goal is to be able to control his anxiety before and during the competition in order to be able to focus solely on his task instead of having anxiety impairing his concentration. First point that it is worth mentioning and investigating further is John's vegan diet. A vegan diet consists of avoiding all animal-derived foods, including milk, other dairy products, eggs, meat, fish, and other seafood. According to Barr and Rideout 2004, vegan diets tend to be higher in nutrient-rich carbohydrates, antioxidants, and phytochemicals, which are helpful in enhancing muscle refueling and maintaining health and well-being during periods of strenuous training. However, vegan diets are high in fiber and low in energy, protein, fat, vitamins B12 and D, calcium, iron, and zinc than omnivorous diets, according to Barr and Rideout 2004. The issue of protein quality was recognized as a potential concern for vegans because plant proteins may be limiting in lysine, threonine, tryptophan, or sulfur-containing amino acids. The literature is consistent in reporting that vegetarians' protein intakes are lower than those of omnivores. As athletes typically have higher energy requirements than the general population, athletes who follow a low-protein vegan diet are attempting to limit their energy intake, as they tend to have an inadequate intake of total protein and essential amino acids, according to Barr and Rideout 2004. Several dietary micronutrients also have the potential to influence athletic performance, and intakes or status may differ between vegetarians or vegans and omnivores. Very few studies have assessed the iron status of vegetarian athletes. It is possible that findings would be similar to those in normally active vegetarians and omnivores. However, because certain types of physical activity may increase athletes' iron losses, the tendency for vegetarians to have suboptimal iron status could be exacerbated among athletes. According to Barr and Rideout 2004, vegetarians or vegans who exclude all foods from animal sources, for example vegans, do not have a reliable source of vitamin B12 in their diet without use of fortified foods or a supplement. Over time, inadequate intakes will lead to macrocytic anemia. Like other anemias, microcytic anemia is associated with reduced oxygen transport and hence impaired aerobic performance. Thus, vegan athletes need to include synthetic vitamin B12 in their diets to prevent macrocytic anemia. Supplements or fortified foods may be used to meet the need for vitamin B12. A second issue observed is the strategy that John adopts when under high-threat situation, which is to guide his focus of attention internally by telling himself how to execute the movement in a basic way in order to perform well. The athlete's focus of attention has been researched as a potentially influential factor for a long time. There are 2 key focuses that are the most important in John's case, and those are the external and the internal focus of attention. For the external focus of attention, John's focus would be on the rifle, and for the internal focus of attention, John would try to focus mainly on the movement of either some parts of his body or the whole body prior to shooting. According to Wolf 2013, over the past 15 years, it has been found that external focus of attention has a more beneficial impact on the effectiveness and efficiency of motor performance and on the speed of the learning process. Accuracy has been analyzed during several target sports, and it was reported that external focus instructions enhanced performance in experienced athletes relative to internal focus, according to Bell and Hardy 2009 and Wolf and Su 2007. In order to explain why there is a difference between the effects of different foci, the constrained action hypothesis was proposed. According to Wolf et al. 1998, this view suggests that an internal focus induces a conscious type of control, causing John to constrain his motor system by interfering with automatic control processes. In contrast, an external focus promotes a more automatic mode of control by utilizing unconscious, fast, and reflexive control processes. Essentially, when John is focusing internally, he is more likely to break down his movements and not be able to perform the movement in an unconscious way, whereas when he focuses externally, he does not think about the movement of the body. His focus is on an environmental goal that makes his movement to be rapid and in most cases more successful. Finally, John has been assessed as high threat and state anxious, and the procedures implemented so far to aid him with his emotions during competitions has not helped him. The relationship between anxiety and sport performance has been investigated over the past 20 years, which has led to the development of several theories attempting to explain how and why anxiety impairs performance, according to Wilson 2008. One of the most recent and most relevant theories is attentional control theory, developed by Ising et al. In 2007, which argues that anxiety has a greater effect on processing efficiency rather than on the performance effectiveness. It is stated in Ising et al. 2007 that anxiety occurs when a current of high importance goal is threatened, which results in shifting the attention to detecting the source of the threat and planning a response. Consequently, it is possible for processing resources to be directed from task-relevant stimuli towards task-irrelevant one, regardless if the stimuli are external or internal, according to Ising et al. 2007. This deficiency in attentional control is associated with an interference in the stability of two attentional systems, a goal-directed attentional system and a stimulus-driven attentional system, according to Corbetta and Schulman 2002. Commonly, anxiety has a greater influence on the stimulus-driven attentional system compared to the goal-directed attentional system. Attentional control theory acknowledges the inhibition and shifting functions of the central executive, which anxiety has the greatest impact on, according to Miyake et al. 2002. It is the deficiency of these components of attentional control, for example inhibition and shifting, that is believed to affect the balance between the goal-directed and stimulus-driven attentional systems. Therefore, John's performance is impaired under high-threat situations because he is not able to inhibit task-irrelevant stimuli, as anxiety has a negative effect on the balance between the goal-directed and stimulus-driven system. Considering the evidence presented so far for the concerns considering a vegan diet, athletes following a vegan diet may struggle to meet daily protein intake goals and incorporate adequate protein at strategic times throughout the day, for example during the post-exercise period, to optimize response from daily training. Previous empirical research has concluded that a well-planned and varied vegan diet can meet the needs of athletes, according to Niemann 1999. Therefore, it is best to recommend John to consult a dietitian to make sure that his daily food intake is appropriate for his high levels of physical activity and that they are in accordance with the demands during competition. Regarding his focus of attention and based on the empirical research presented so far, John will be guided to focus more on the gun and the target when performing the task, rather than focusing on the movements of his body, in order to avoid breaking down the movements that John has skillfully learned previously. Regarding John's coping strategies, it has been demonstrated that a longer quiet-eye duration is particularly essential when performing a task under anxious situations, according to Wilson et al. 2009. Quiet Eye improves performance by guiding athletes to focus on important cues at the optimal time, according to Vine et al. 2014. More accurately, Quiet Eye helps to maintain goal-directed attentional control, important for response and action selection, and prevents the influence of the stimulus-driven attentional control system. Thus, through Quiet Eye training, the attentional control is optimized, so performers focus on the most important stimuli and inhibit salient or irrelevant stimuli. A number of studies have demonstrated that greater performance in aiming tasks is characterized by longer Quiet Eye periods. Vickers and Williams 2007 found that elite biathletes who increased their Quiet Eye duration during high-threat competition compared with low-threat practice were less susceptible to sudden performance disruption or choking as physiological arousal increased to maximum. Overall, the action plan suggested aims at achieving Jones' goals, and the progress of Jones' performance after the suggestions will be implemented will be followed up through regular informal chats.